ex-prisoners of Reddit. What's the scariest thing you've seen in prison? I did a couple years when I was young and dumb. The craziest shit I saw was actually in the county jail and not the state prison. The county jail was right on the Texas-Mexico border, so there were a lot of Hispanics. What was weird was the Hispanics born in America and the Mexicans from Mexico absolutely hated each other. I saw a Hispanic from Texas heat up a bowl of water until it was boiling in the microwave. We had microwaves in the tank. And he then proceeded to throw the boiling water on a Mexican from Mexico's face and then beat the ever-loving shit out of him. That dude's screams will haunt me forever. I also saw a guy take a blade from a small pencil sharpener, tie it to a toothbrush and then slice a guy's face from ear to ear while he was sleeping. The guy lived, but it looked like a fucking murder scene. A friend of mine did a short stint. From what he told me, he was supposed to get paperwork detailing his charges before he got to prison, but did not. This made the other prisoners suspicious as they believed he was a snitch, was trying to hide that fact from them, and they threatened to beat him. An old acquaintance of his was in there and assured my friend that he had nothing to worry about as they had been threatening him for months and nothing had happened. That night while my friend was making his bed, a few prisoners ran into his acquaintance's cell and beat him to within inches of his life. They were bouncing the guy's head off of the concrete to the point that my friend could hear it. My buddy says that's the moment that scared him straight. Everybody knows who the Chomas are. They're the ones that go to church for mad's sake. They all go to church. Every one of them. Can you elaborate more on this? I don't know prison lingo that well. Chomo equals child molester, adseg equals administrative segregation. Ex-UK prisoner, and even beyond the violence etc. The scariest are spice attacks, which are essentially what happens when you smoke too much spice. Reactions vary from severe agitation and psychosis to seizures and vomiting. Saw multiple people having seizures in puddles of vomit and piss, and saw one guy cut part of his ear off with a disposable razor and throw it at a female prison guard, just to name a few. Not me, but my husband was in prison as a young adult. He said that they had a way of checking your ego in the spot he was at. The toughest guys would come up to you on your first day and ask how many push-ups you could do. If you were smart, you would just sorta blow it off or laugh it off and move on. If you were a stupid show-off or had something to prove, you would claim a large number or talk yourself up. If you did that, then they would be all friendly and be like, oh, let's see it. So the poor guy would do as many push-ups as they could. The tough guys would gas the new guy up, acting friendly, pushing him to do more. They acted impressed and joked around. Then as soon as the new guy had done as many push-ups as possible, they would jump him and beat him up. He would be helpless to resist because he had maxed himself out on push-ups. Afterwards, any guy with an ego was normally really quiet for the remainder of their stay. What if someone responded realistically and humbly with a not that many response? They'd probably leave you alone because you're not acting like a tough guy. Acting like a tough guy gets you jumped. Saw a girl swan dive off the top tier one stint, and the next time I went, my cellmate swallowed heroin before she was booked in and died. No one noticed for a day. It was a big dorm and I wasn't next to her, but no one noticed. Everyone thought she was coming off meth and needing to sleep. The girl that jumped off the tire lived, luckily. I was in jail once waiting to see a judge. They'd moved me to 3 different jails in 3 days for some reason. I wasn't a troublemaker and was only in for driving on a suspended license, but I am big and scary looking. Anyways, when they transferred me to court, I was handcuffed to someone serving life and he was Aryan Brotherhood. I'm Hispanic, but look completely white and have a shaved head. He told me blacks were greenlit and that I had to swing on sight. If I saw a black man within reach, I was required to fight him, or they would beat or kill me later. It was scary, and luckily the COs were aware and kept everyone separate until the green light ended. Hey man, you gotta swing at these black guys or we are gonna murder you. Goddamn man, I'm here for a DUI. Not an inmate but current correctional officer. Once I was speaking to an inmate who was accused, and later found guilty of killing 5 women. He stared at me straight in the eyes and said that's what the police found. Haunting. Obligatory, not a prison but an ex-correctional officer. I once had to work overtime in a segregation unit. The first thing that happens upon entering this unit is we get a call that an inmate who was out on a medical trip was coming back in, and was to be placed into a suicide watch cell. This inmate had been taken to an outside hospital for cutting his arm from his wrist to his bicep. We placed him in the suicide watch cell and went to find a bed mat for him, which was hard cause he couldn't have one with a hole in it while being on suicide watch. He told me that if I didn't get him a bed mat in 5 minutes, he was going to start ripping stitches. I told him to wait, went to find a mat, and it had apparently been 6 minutes, cause by the time I got back, he had torn off his bandages and ripped out every single stitch in his arm. The blood was all over the place. We could easily see the muscle and fat in his arm. He agreed to cuff up, and went on his merry way back to the outside hospital. I later found out he had only initially done it cause he wanted to get out of prison for a while. That fact alone messed me up. Wasn't in prison, but I spent a weekend in a holding cell. My first day, some guy was having heroin withdrawals and being completely unresponsive, clearly needing medical attention. CO got aggressive and another cellie stepped in telling the CO to cool it. Both got thrown in the hole. Guy who was standing up for the other came back with a badly bruised and swollen face, and the guy having withdrawals didn't come back. Hopefully he actually got medical attention, but you never know. Also, when they grouped us together to put us in front of the temp judge, an older gentleman who was missing a leg had a horrible seizure. They crammed all 15 of us into a holding cell meant for 2 for an hour, and someone decided to drop the worst smelling shit I've ever smelled that we had to sit with the entire time. Jail isn't fun, y'all. Where I was, the guard towers were armed with a variety of less than lethal firearms. A fight started on the breezeway, main walkway between units. You hear the siren and you have about 10 seconds. Sit on your ass and cover your head to protect from OC overspray. Else, the guards start shooting shotguns loaded with rubber balls at you. One of the guards hit one of the guys fighting directly in the sack with a rubber ball round. Turned the front of his jeans red by the time they got him up into the infirmary. Apparently lost a testicle due to rupture. Was a CO, not a prisoner. Saw a guy have his arms and legs held down by the AB in the common area. He snitched on the pod boss over something small. Other AB members on the 3rd tier, 3 stories up, drop a toilet on the guy's head. It was like a watermelon got dropped from that height. Not me, but my friend's dad is a retired CO, and he said he's seen some shit in the prisons. He told us this story about a sex offender who got booked. Everyone knows that sex offenders aren't looked very highly upon in prison, so things already weren't looking too good for him. Well, apparently Mr. Touchy opened his mouth that he was in for diddling kids. My friend's dad said within seconds, the other inmates jumped him and started beating the shit out of him. He said the animosity of it was insane. They were holding him down while another one stomped on his head and face. They would throw him face first into the wall, then punch the back of his head so his face kept getting pounded into the concrete. Apparently at one point, one of the inmates jumped on his chest and you could audibly hear all his ribs break. My friend's dad was called in to break it up, and he said as he was approaching the stomping ground, he could see the sex offender trying to crawl away, only to be yanked back by the ankles and have the beating resume. They eventually broke it up, but according to my friend's dad, the sex offender died on the way to the hospital. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to our new channel.